So our next transaction is receipt of cash 1000 on credit sales. This credit sale is dated 10th of January and the transaction was cash debit worth 4000. Accounts receivable debit 2000. And revenue or sales credit 4 plus 2 6000. So earlier we did not receive any cash, so we included accounts receivable. Now we are receiving cash worth of 1000. So accounts receivable will decrease because earlier it was account receivable because we did not receive cash. Now when we receive the cash, we will reduce account receivable, and accounts receivable is an asset, and when asset decreases is credit. At the same time we are receiving cash worth of 1000, so cash is an asset and it is increasing, so it is debit. So we have both debit and credit account. So first put the date in the journal book, then first of all include the debit account, that is cash debit, and then credit will be accounts receivable because now it is decreasing. Accounts receivable credit, so the amount is 1000 for both the accounts. Just put a short note: cash has been received for previous on credit sales. So that was the journal entry for the transaction. Now let's move to the next transaction, that is logistic company has submitted a bill worth 250 for shipping expenses. So only bill has received yet, no cash has been paid. So we have received the service but we have not paid anything so far. So we have created a liability. We have created a liability because we have not paid but we have taken the service. So liability is increasing and this is associated with shipping expenses. So what will be the term of the account? We can put it under trades payable or we can put it under accounts payable. Here I prefer to use trades and other payable. So this is the credit account because liability has increased, and then we also have an expense which has increased, that is shipping expense. So when expenses increase, they are debit. And what will be the name of the account? For the simplicity, I will use shipping and distribution expense. So which account should we use? This is associated with shipping expenses, so we can use shipping expenses, but there will be so many expenses that are related to these shipping expenses. So I prefer to use selling and distribution expense because it is a broad account, controlling account, and a lot of accounts can be put under this ledger or under this account. So for simplicity, I will use selling and distribution expense. So this is our debit account, that is selling and distribution expense. Debit, and the amount will be 250. So put 250. Then we have our credit account, that is trade and others payable. This is very common term, trade and others payable, and accounts payable also very common term because this is related to trade, so I will use trades payable. So put a short note: bills for shipping expenses has been received, or we could also use shipping expenses has been incurred but not paid yet. So let's move to the next transaction. Partial payment of 2000 for inventories purchased on credit. This credit purchase is dated 3rd January 2019 and that journal entry was when we purchased on credit, inventory is debit because inventory is increased, and accounts payable credit because we did not pay at that time, so accounts payable credit. So earlier we did not pay, so we increased accounts payable by 5,000, but now we are paying 2,000 worth of cash. So we cannot keep the accounts payable 5,000 because we are paying right now, so accounts receivable will decrease, and at the same time cash will also reduce, and accounts payable is liability, and liability is decreasing here, so debit, and cash is going out of the organization, and it is asset, so asset is also decreasing, so it is credit. So we have both debit and credit account. Debit is accounts payable because it is decreasing, and credit is crash. So first of all put the date and then the debit account, that is accounts payable. I could also use trade and others payable, but I prefer to use accounts payable for inventories purchase, and for other activities I prefer to use trades and other payable. So accounts payable debit 2,000, and cash is decreasing, we are paying cash, so cash credit 2,000. And then just write a short note, simple and enough informative, that is payment for inventories purchased previously. So here I am using payment of inventories purchased on credit. So let's move to the next transaction, wages, utilities and rent paid for cash. Now these wages, utilities and rent fall under a broad category of administrative and general expenses. This is the broad category of these expenses. So we will use administrative and general expenses as our account. Here I would like to use administrative and general expense, which is an expense account, and expense will increase their debit. So expense is debit, and at the same time we are paying cash. Asset will also reduce because we are paying cash, so it is credit. So the first of all the debit account, that is administrative and general account. Please don't forget to write the date properly. So first of all administrative and general expenses debit. I have used this term for simplicity. I could also use wages debit, utilities debit, rent debit, but for simplicity I am using administrative and general expenses. And the amount is 1,000 plus 400 plus 600, that is 2,000. So debit 2,000, and also cash credit, that is also 2,000. That is the journal entry. Now write a short note, payment of wages, utilities and rent for cash. So that was the transaction. Let's move to the next transaction, that is payment of yearly insurance premium. So yearly insurance premium is paid in advance because we do not pay insurance at the end of the year. We always pay insurance prior to the time it is covered. So it is been paid in advance, which is called prepaid expenses, and prepaid expenses is an asset. Any expense that is paid in advance, it will be an asset, and this time the prepaid expenses are increasing, so are assets, so it is debit, and the amount is 10,000, which is paid in cash. So asset is also decreasing because cash is going out of the organization, so cash is credit. So first of all, put the date properly, then the debit account, that is prepaid expense. I'm repeating the same thing, that whenever expenses are paid in advance, it is an asset. We call it prepaid expenses. So put the amount, then the credit account is cash credit. So put the amount under credit column and write a short note. Advance payment of insurance premium or yearly insurance premium. So that was the transaction. Let's move to the next transaction, that is Mr. Z withdrew 1500 cash for personal purpose. Earlier when Mr. Z invested the cash, we called it Z's capital. Now it is decreasing because he is taking cash out of the organization. So just the opposite, capital was credit when increased, so now it is debit because it is going out. At the same time, cash is also going out of the organization. So asset is going out of the organization. The asset will reduce because cash is an asset, and when assets reduce, cash reduce, asset will also reduce. And asset reduce, that means it will be credit. So now we have both debit and credit account. So let's put it in the journal book. First of all, Z's capital will be debit. Earlier when Z invested, it was Z's capital credit. Now this is just the opposite. Z's capital debit worth 1500, and at the same time cash is also going out of the organization because the organization and the owner are two different entities. So for personal purpose, Z withdrew the cash, so cash will go out of the organization, and it is an withdrawal, reduction of capital. So capital debit, cash credit, and the note will be withdrawal of cash by the owner for personal purpose. Had he withdrew the cash for business purpose, it would be considered as an expense, or we could mention the purpose. It would not be withdrawal, but because it is for personal purpose, we are using withdrawal. This video is brought to you by The Wire Best. All your clothing needs and fashion statement just in one click. The Wire Best. Best deal, best product. If my videos are helping you, please consider subscribing and share my videos with your friends. If you have any issues regarding journaling or any other topics in accounting or business studies related, any subjects, please write in the comment box. I will try to explain that issue. And like always, subscribe, share and comment.